Welcome to the American Institute of Stress's official podcast, Finding Contentment. The goal of this podcast is to highlight new information about stress and stress management techniques. While we understand that stress is a very personalized issue and different for everyone, we hope to help you find your own way to contentment.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Finding Contentment. This is your host and executive director for the American Institute of Stress. It's Will Heckman. This is the official podcast for the American Institute of Stress. And I want to remind everybody, I know if you've been listening, thank you. But I want to remind you all to please subscribe to our free magazines. Combat Stress just came out at the time of the recording of this show, and it's really awesome. They're free. Both magazines are free. All you got to do is go to stress.org, subscribe to the magazines. A lot of great information there. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I got to do that YouTube thing. Hey, please hit that subscribe button. It's over there somewhere. I'm going to put it over there. Please hit the subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a like. It means a lot to me. If you get something from this podcast, we'd appreciate you doing that. All right. So today, I get to have a conversation about a topic that's, well, it's near and dear to my heart. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know I was an educator. And so we're going to be talking about education, the education system, and of course, the stress. Few people outside of the system realize the pressure put on those who are involved in teaching and the care of our young adults and our young children. And as for the students, there's been a lot of research that indicates that unchecked academic-related stress can reduce academic achievement, decrease motivation, and increase and increase the risk of school dropout. And I was involved with that too. And the longer term impacts, which include likelihood of sustainable unemployment if you drop out of school. It costs the government billions of dollars each year. So I felt a conversation about the impact of academic related stress was important, including a discussion of the impact on students' learning capacity and the academic performance and the mental health problems that we begin to see, such as depression, anxiety, sleep problems, and of course, sometimes substance abuse. So this conversation is long overdue, but you don't want to hear that from me. So I invited one of the leading experts in the field, and I have. It's Dr. Yair Maman. In the last 20 years, Dr. Maman has been a faculty member and a dean and a chair of programs in educational and psychology of Touro College and university systems. This included an appointment at New York Medical College. He holds several master degrees, 2 doctorate degrees in the fields of education and psychology, and Dr. Maman has played a very pivotal role in restructuring vocational training for at-risk youth with audio-video engineering and other STEAM careers. For those of you who don't know, that's was STEM. It is now STEAM. It's science, technology, education, arts, and math. Don't forget that one. And he continues to be a voice for change in the behavioral health workforce in public schools, hospitals, businesses, and organizations. Like I said, somebody who's really qualified to talk to this. So please welcome Dr. Yair Maman. Yair, welcome. Good to have you here.
Hello, nice to be with you.
You know, first thing I wanted to talk to you about is you are, and I've read this about you, that you have developed master and doctoral level training programs for therapists and coaches and psychologists. And said you did it in Vienna, Paris, London, and now New York. Where did you start out?
Well, I was kind of growing up all around the world. I moved around in France, England, mostly in Europe, as my family was in real estate and development.
Wow.
And we're many in the larger family acquired property that I assisted in managing. So I helped manage both residential and commercial properties in New York, London, Paris, Marseille, Vienna, other places in Europe. And after years of working with my family, and it's a stressful situation in business, especially family business, it's kind of led me to pursue, maybe look around, even in Vienna or other places, explore different different paths to psychology.
Right. I saw that you also started out in computer and telecommunication technologies. I see you're still involved in that. Could you tell us how you found your way to becoming a psychologist? I know you said that you were semi interested in starting in Vienna,
Yeah,
and now you're working for the New York City school system, which is the definition of stress, working for almost any school system.
yeah. So whether it was in Vienna or other places, I always liked to explore. So in Vienna, I would develop, for instance, an interest in psychoanalysis. I visited institute. It was all in an unofficial capacity, but growing up around the world, I became worldly, and as a young person, I had questions and a kind of internal dialogue. And I mean, technology is another thing I explored. Always fascinated with the micro and how things work technically within the computer chips. But also, I wanted to expand as far as interpersonal relationships. I had a relationship with so many different family members, cousins from many places in the world. So unlike my many cousins and family members who were just interested in business and the day to day, I was interested always to see the larger picture. As I said, in science, the physics of it all, and
Right.
going beyond that, I wanted to look beyond not only out of the world, but also at some of the existential stuff. So that's why I was always like looking in many directions and from many points of view at life.
Well, like you said, you're worldly. That's putting it mildly. I mean, you've been around a lot. Okay, so I got to ask you, how many languages do you speak?
Yes, so I have family both from Portugal, Spain, so a little bit Portuguese, Spanish, but I was born in Israel, so I'm fluent in Hebrew and Arabic, and I can navigate French, German, and I try to learn as many languages as I can
You
learn.
left
And
out English.
yeah,
So,
English I left out. I'm still learning that one.
well, you do it. You speak a lot more English than I do Hebrew, so
Oh, okay.
I promise that. I share that interest that you have in technology. I also was involved in S.T.E.A.M, which is do you know what that is? It's a club for STEM for kids, and a lot of them went into aerospace. So I was very involved in that, in the video engineering, audio engineering. That's why I got into doing this, folks. But um, I wanted to talk to you about what you do now in your capacity as a psychologist. Um, and I wanted to, because I think people really need to know this. And people talk to me about it. They know I have a past in education. Obviously, now I'm involved in stress and stress management. So I get into these conversations a lot of times with educators about what the biggest stressors are happening right now in school systems. Obviously, the pandemic was a humongous upheaval for education, much more than people probably realize. So I want to ask you what you're seeing, because you're actually, you're in the trenches working with these teachers and psychologists and coaches and guidance counselors.
Yeah, so I think in a nutshell, and I think this was even before the pandemic, but of course the pandemic made it worse. But it seems like for kids today, there is no one to guide.
Hmm.
So it's almost they were allowed to guide themselves, and there was too much adult information at a younger age. So with advances of technology, they grew faster, but there was no manual. There's no manual to guide them. So
Right.
this extends, of course, to the adults in their life, their parents, and everything else. So I guess that's the core of the issue. That when we train guidance counselor and I, we have the largest program in New York City. We're a New York City school, so we train most of the guidance counselors these days. And it seems like even the generation that's coming, the new kids who are getting a master's in school counseling, are struggling with who guides me. So they're kids themselves, and and it seems like preparation, they're underprepared for life, for real life. But that brings about, to me, in my mind, it brings the larger question, which, like, are we prepared as a society? So, like, we just had an earthquake in Turkey, a big one. So are we prepared for the next pandemics, the next earthquake? And I always like, when I train students, I always like to tell them, like, so here's how you start thinking about it. You take you big picture thinking. As the bigger you can think, the easier it is to kind of find a way to lessen the stress. So even if you have to go think about aliens, scientists from outer space coming in and measuring our behavior towards preparations for different eventuality. So what do we consider important? And mainly, the human race, survival, compassion for others. So how do we tackle adversity? And you can see that if those aliens that are scientists that are visiting us from decade to decade, they would see that we moved away from space exploration. We don't think about going to the moon or traveling to Mars. We should have been
I agree.
Going to Mars by now. So from that point of view, technology has advanced, but it's not matching with the majority of what kids are about today. They're more users of technology. There's little education into, like you said, the S.T.E.A.M, the technology that they need to learn to kind of like get to the point that it matches where it's going and where it needs to go. So we have kind of lost perspective in what we do and how we do it, and we just got kids today that are addicted to social media and stuff that it's really dumbed down our everything that they do, so that they no longer are involved in anything complex. So I remember when I was 13 or something, I got this new Apple II computer, and I was looking into the machine language and the hexadecimal and very complicated math, and I was so fascinated. And when you talk to a kid today, I think you and I talked about this before. They want to see how they look on TikTok or what they post or some stupid thing they did. So it doesn't really. There are less and less of those kids who are interested in exploring, and that lack of exploration is a lack of preparation for the future.
You're so right. You hit it nail right on the head. It's a lack of preparation. It was a joke in my school that, because I taught research, and that the biggest stressor they had was me. Because they would Google stuff and get information, take the easy road, and I would simply look at them and say, "Where'd you get that information?" And it would go from there. And you're right, because they weren't prepared. The technology is a great tool, but if you use it the wrong way, it makes you lazy. It really does. Let's be a fact. So what else do you see now really stressing students? Besides the fact that the technology is something that they're ill prepared to use, and they get to start to use it when they're 5. What other things are going on with kids today? They're very different. I started in education a long time ago, and I saw a progression of more and more students having a problem. The other thing I want, and we'll get into the other thing I want to talk to you about, is guidance counselors, because I've always been friends with guidance counselors. But what is the other thing right now besides that technology that you would say, if you could put your finger on one thing, it's different for everyone?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the other thing is the opposite of what technology is providing, and technology is providing just addiction to a screen, where we need social interaction that are real. and they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to have a friend that's not an online friend.
Right. They can't make a phone call.
Right. Yeah. And in a way, they're parents who are not letting kids be kids and trying to do everything for them. And you get an 18-year-old, who doesn't know how to go into the world, or what to do in a relationship, how to rent an apartment, or how it's always there's always like a challenge today with kids.
Yeah.
Trying. I mean, some of them, we were like that as teenagers. We always wanted, to kind of like see what we see, and try to shy away from responsibility. But today it seems like there's no shame around that,
One of the biggest indicators of that, you're so right. And one of the biggest indicators of that is when you and I reached the age, we couldn't wait to drive.
Right.
Kids say don't even want to drive. They
Right.
just, and I have to admit, you're absolutely right. I'm guilty of that myself. If my daughter has a problem, I jump in to help. And you're right. We should let them fail in a padded room.
Yeah, because if you're not self-reliant, and the reason you don't want to drive because somebody can do it for you. So I think the issue of like there's kind of they're detached in the way a new generation that it's touches, like they don't think of like self-sufficiency, but there's also no shame and no sense of responsibility to say, oh, I should be helping out, Or when I was in school, I don't know, probably when you were in school, there was such a thing called community service. You used to go to all to give, to the elderly, provide meals or do something, or volunteer to do something. And and we wanted to do that because we wanted to help, it's kind of like you pull your own weight. And it seems like the kids today don't see the need, but they were not taught.
Mm-hmm.
They were not taught that this is important for a sense of community, for humanity.
You're right. And there still is community service. High school students, at least where I am, are required to do a certain amount of hours. And I'm involved in a lot of charities because, first of all, I'm this one, but I also am involved in other ones because I'm a biker, and motorcyclists are always involved in charities. And we used to give community service hours to high schoolers, but you're absolutely right. They need that connection to people. And because of that lack of connection, it does cause stress in their life when it comes up, whether they like it or not. It's going to come up. So you're right. It's ill prepared. Okay. I want to ask you something because you teach guidance counselors.
Yeah.
You instruct them, you mentor them. And I was friends with a lot of guidance counselors. Some of them were my personal psychologists. Because in a school, when you're having a bad day, which can happen in 10 minutes, I had to have some place to go. And I would go to see, my friend Rudy and sit down and talk to them. Do you think guidance counselors today actually get to guide students when they come to them, when they're stressed out, when they're feeling a little burnt out, when they're having those moments of anxiety? I saw such a problem with that. Do you see the student able to go and just sit down and talk to their guidance counselor?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. And just because of the ratio, in the school, we would think that, and they say, I think it keeps differing. Sometimes they say 1 to 400, 1 to 250. So you have, I have one school. We work with a lot of high need school in Brooklyn. We work in Bushwick with almost all the high schools there, all the middle schools there. And you see a situation where the ones we train, our alumni, when we visit them, and they train also, they help with internships for our trainees. And we see situations when there's just no time, because between them, the periods, and when they have time between what they learn, and even if they don't get lunch time, and over lunch do provide counseling, there's not enough time, because there's not enough. There's one counselor to 1,000 kids or 500 kids, and we need to definitely do something about the density to have more. more of them available, more mental health professionals available. I think the other thing that we're trying to do for years now is also work with community clinics, so it doesn't end in the school. So we kind of refer out, because some of the things may involve family therapy, may involve medical interventions, or seeing someone outside the school. So it's a difficult situation, and of course, following the pandemic, they're all stressed out. They all have issues with anxiety and depression.
Right.
Many of them are really like struggling. Many of the kids in the schools, and that extends also to the teachers, because they're the staff, the school staff,
You bet.
they're experiencing burnout. It's a major one, and one of the workshops I've been running lately was we titled it "How to Not Lose Your Cool in School," and it was a partnership with the UFT, with the teachers union. When we came into the school and I started lecturing, I said, try to see those kids in the same way that you were a kid once and what they're going through, and try to be the bigger person, because even a teacher is a guide. So teachers are struggling in the same way that kids are, because of the pandemic, because they're going back to school and they're going back to work, and who wants to go back to work when many people are working remotely out there? So it is a challenging situation, and I hope that people will come together. And I think, like, when you talk about yourself doing volunteer work, I think there's rooms for others, not just teachers, to come into the school and contribute, for just community members or people who own businesses, or college professors, or just to come in, just to staff,
Right.
to help around, because it's not just the mental health services that are needed, which they are needed, but it's also the human component, the human touch. They need people around them.
I think people who are listening, and a lot of our listeners are involved in education and mental health, don't really realize just how stressful it is to be an educator or be in education at all. If you're serious about it, and very few educators are not, you have an immense responsibility, because you're dealing with people's lives and a young person's lives and helping develop that. And I've had kids come to me with problems that were not kid-like. They were not, expected, oh my God, my face is breaking out. This was, hey, Mr. Heckman, I'm pregnant. And like you said, I think bringing outside help in the community, mental health professionals and things like this is a great help. We ask way too much of our guidance counselors. We are constantly testing, and who do you think we get called on to do the proctoring and administration of those tests? It's guidance counselors. Lisa was in a lot of schools I work. So they don't get a really good chance to develop those relationships. And the numbers you use, Yair, were right. It's 1 to 500 kids. You don't have time to develop a relationship with those 500 kids. And not all of them need you. But even if only half of them need you, because they're so stressed out. And when they get so stressed out and so anxious, that's when you and I both know they're at risk for dropping out. And I applaud the fact that you work with guidance counselors and trying to, just getting them to be a guidance counselor is hard. You have to be a very resilient person to do that. So
you have to become also an advocate, and I'm trying to go to New York State and beyond, and nationally, to advocate for more, basically more positions, more counselors in the school. So more social workers, more psychologists. However you can create a budget to be, and maybe also to train teachers in how to, in some kind of training on mental health services, or just how to create a mindful environment, how to work with kids who are struggling, mentally, and especially now there's a crisis in special education, which is a whole other thing where
Right.
we have a lot of kids who are either disabled or who have special needs, and it's making the situation even worse because they were at home where they actually needed to be in a place where their needs are met.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen that happen. Certainly the ESC teachers, the special education teachers they're few and far between. I mean, they're hard to find because you sort of have to be a certain kind of person to do that. I certainly couldn't, although I've taught ESC kids my whole life. But to focus on that is got to be one of the most stressful things in the world. I don't know how they do it. I just love them for the fact they do. My wife is a teacher too, and she teaches elementary. She works
yeah,
with kids all the time. So I understand. I want the people to understand that working in a school is not the sage on the stage, which is what the old expression used to be, is the guy standing in front of the class and lecturing and reading. It's so much more. It's such a complicated profession. So, when you train guidance counselors, do you have outside resources? I was the chair of the professional development committee many years ago, a decade ago, not that long ago, really, I guess. And I would look for mental health components that I can open and have teachers take. Either there were none, or they were not geared towards stress management. They were geared for something or focusing on something that was not involved with that. That's changed a little bit, but you're still involved in New York City school system. Do you see professional development now for teachers on how to manage stress or how to tell students how to manage stress?
yeah, unfortunately, it's something that it's almost like a peer-to-peer. We have like something we call peer supervision, so
Mm-hmm.
actually help one another and actually also with resources. So because New York City is very diverse and we have so many communities, we encourage them to cross community lines by just placing them in more than one internships and having them at least one day visit a community they never would visit. So you would never have somebody from Williamsburg, which is a Hasidic community, visit somebody from Brooklyn, Atlantic Avenue, where there's a madrasa, a Muslim place, or vice versa, or a Catholic school going here, or different religion, different neighborhoods. So because New York is kind of a microcosm
Mm-hmm.
and it has all of that, it's kind of like interesting to see how the world operates kind of in a UN way, where you pull resources. And what we saw was something very interesting. We saw that sometimes they would have people from one community come to another community to help with mental health issues. Somebody who's a mental health counselor, was a little free time, and we work with high need school and say, oh, sure, I'll go to Bushwick, or I'll go to East New York or a place, and I will try to help around. So it's nice to see that willingness, and I hope the world operated like that. We can move people around. So it's not that we don't have people who are ready and actually interested in helping. It's just the logistics are what gets in the way, and
Yeah.
unfortunately also the politics. Not only nationally the politics, but also the board of ed. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of stuff. How are you doing
Yes,
it?
I
Why are you
know.
doing?
Yeah, I know. And the biggest. I bet you. I know the biggest wall you come up against. Well, how does that
Yeah,
affect
yeah.
instructional
And
time? You
yeah,
know,
and through the years, it's almost I leave them bewildered because they say, "Oh, did you fill out this form, that form?" I said, "No, right now I have this person willing to help. The principal says it's okay. Do you guys want the kid this kid not to get the services because your guys are not helping?"
right?
And then they just go away. So it's almost like it's almost like we shun formality to a certain extent because that's the only way that things will get done because we need people to walk the walk. We can't just have, saying like, oh yeah, we'll put it in the budget, we'll look at it next year. I say it's here and it's needed now.
Right.
So that's why I always believe like I'm always on the go. I have like I always say that I'm a chair of a program but I'm out of the chair. I'm never in the chair.
I
Because we
understand
just
what
sit,
that's like.
yeah. You also know what it's like.
Yeah.
So I like to be on the go, and wherever I see something interesting, someone who can help, or I can pull or get that going, uh, use that momentum of my excitement of being a helping professional, just to encourage others to come along.
Well,
So
if people are listening and they're involved in mental health, here's your chance. Do some volunteer work. Do some good.
yeah,
You know what? It's very simple. Just go to the local school, the local high school, middle school, and ask to speak to the guidance counselor.
yeah,
Do a day training for the teachers in stress management. At stress.org, the American Institute of Stress, we're very happy to offer for free a course for teens on stress management. All you have to do is go to stress.org. It's on the main page. It's a free course that teens can take, and it addresses their stress management and teaches them some tools on how to deal with it, which is really what we should all be doing.
yeah, that's absolutely great. Yeah, and I'll also tell the teachers union, and because the teachers themselves need the break, and sometimes they forget. I
Right.
tell them when they go in between from one class, one period to the other, if you can stop, take it 10 minutes, take it for yourself. Don't stand the hallways talking to somebody else. Go into a room, close your eyes, and imagine you were in when I just told them, where do you imagine you are? And somebody said, I'm the Caribbean, I'm on a beach. And so that really helps, just
Mhm.
to get away from the moment where you stopped, just reacting all day, and you respond to life, or you look around and you absorb what it's all about, and you see uh, some kind of hope for you, even yourself, that one day you will retire, and maybe you'll miss these times. And
And as teachers should remember, because they forget this, they need to celebrate their little successes all day
yeah,
long. And like you said, take a break. How many times you and I go into the staff, cafeteria or the staff room to hang out, and what are they talking about? Work. Like,
right,
sometimes so
right.
stop talking
It's
about
all
it sometimes. And that's not
right.
just teaching folks. If you're it's workplace stress. And which is a
Yeah,
very big problem in this country and many other countries. And we talk about it often on this show and at the American Institute of Stress. Workplace stress is one of the reasons that makes people unhappy. So, all right, I wanted to get to something else. Because you wrote a great book. And I'm going to read the title, Perspectives in Coaching to Prevent Stress and Invite New Possibilities. And in that book you wrote, we overthink problems that are not there in the first place, but we underthink when it's necessary to get the whole story. Tell us what you meant by that, because I thought it was a great quote.
yeah. So it's like you overthink, like if you talk about kids, right? And a kid today will be bullied online, and I talk to a kid that I'm taking it to the level of kids because it's the same for adults. I say, oh, this person called me this name, and he said like I'm ugly, or I'm this, or I'm that, and I try to take them away from that moment and say like, does it really matter? You're thinking about it all day and you're clicking on it, but I've been there. We talk to adults; they all have been there, and you see like down the road somebody will become that matters today. He won't matter that much years from now, and you'll probably be doing better in life than somebody who bullies you, because that person is a loser and he will be a loser. Or try whatever language I could talk to
Right.
kids to kind of like get them off the thinking that it matters. So I said like what really matters is your own family, the little things in life that you like to do, the joy of celebrating life, and not to overthink and ruminate or obsess about things that in the long run would not matter. So The underthink is, of course, the preparation. We always underthink preparation because like if you sit for hours doing social media, are you really preparing for life? What are you doing? So it's almost like explain to me how this will help you in the long run.
Yeah, why is taking a picture of what I just ate helping anyone?
Right.
What the hell does that have to do with it? When I was a kid, if I would have pulled out a Polaroid camera and taken a picture of the hamburger I was eating, and I think what's worse is that kids who are addicted to social media and doing things like that and on TikTok and just their whole life is on film. They think that's preparation, and it's not. That's not real life. It's like you said in the beginning, you really got to the point. It doesn't prepare them to rent an apartment. I had to tell kids how to open up a bank account. They were 18 years old. It doesn't prepare them for any of that.
And at least that should be in high schools. We need to open their minds for them to really see and hear when something can be important. For example, in career and college readiness for at-risk youth, that they learn some new technology, something that doesn't include following a celebrity or YouTuber for advice.
Unless it's me.
Unless it's you. unless it's beneficial. But most of those celebrities are really doing stuff that is really dumb.
Right. And you're right. And there's a lot of idleness. It's not really preparing you for and I don't think social media is bad. I don't think YouTube is bad. I'm on YouTube every day. But I go to YouTube to learn how to fix something and build something and do something because I'm a maker and I have always been a maker. So that's a great way to spend time.
So you're a maker, and today they have the ability to Google anything and everything. Right. So leaders throughout history exploited, myths and uncorroborated tales when people had to rely on rumors and fables. They didn't have tools like we have today to research for the truths. And savvy new generation, I think, can gain so much from their newfound knowledge online, but they don't utilize it in a productive way.
I agree with that. In fact, we made a documentary. It's called Mismatch. And when I got involved with it at the end, I said, okay, this is a great tool for education and for corporations and for EAPs, which is employment assistance programs. So I got with some educators and we actually wrote lesson plans and assessment tools it's a 6-part documentary. So so if you get Mismatch for a school, it comes with lesson plans and assessments and things like that. So teachers have something they can use to talk to students about. It really is. And we were so proud of who we got to be on and in that documentary was astounding. We lucked out. If you ever get a chance to go to stress.org, go to stress.org and you can see a trailer about it. It's great. We just had 2 school districts who are using it right now. And I think we just got the 3rd. Who are using it across, and they say, I'm getting good reports. It's saying it's helpful. And you and I are always looking for stuff to help, certainly teachers and students and everyone else involved with it. Running a little late, but I wanted to ask you one thing. In your training programs for counselors, okay, do you have a go-to stress reduction tool that you say, hey, you should be doing this? You should be focusing on this. This will help you handle the stress of every day, and an everyday management tool.
Yeah, we developed something that's, you can always look at different mindfulness technique, but we went a little beyond, and we developed what I call Prospective Coaching, and something I helped develop. And within the program, both the students and the faculty use it, where we try to to start with the inner perspective, with our own perspective of what matters to us internally and internal dialogues, and then go to the next level, which is interpersonal. So interpersonal is always that compassion, put yourself in someone else's shoes and see how they would feel about something. And then if you zoom out more from that perspective, when you go into, the 30,000 foot view, you will try to see how it all fits in and where we fit in. So, I mean, you don't have to imagine, aliens researching you from outer space. You just have to kind of like stop and look around and sometimes I would say the humor of it all is important, because sometimes I would go into a meeting and then, in the middle of Times Square, our campus is, and everybody will be so serious about academic issue and this and that and accreditation issues and that. And then I'll stroll up and walk to Central Park and look at the trees and the birds, and I will just laugh. And I would say it's so laughable, that we're human beings, and we spend hours of like using words and
Right.
blah 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 and talking and all that. And I'm here in nature, and it's so marvelous. I'm looking at the trees, looking at the lake, and why don't we have that balance sometimes? Why maybe we have lost perspective in how we do things and how we are. So this is also when we overthink, and this is also when we need the balance between the mind, body, the nature, work, and try to connect with just on those moments of if not silence, those moments of just kind of wonderment. And
Serenity.
the wonderment is out there.
I agree with you. A global look of your life is always a good idea. And you're right. We ruminate and we listen to that inner dialect a little bit too much. I've been accused of that myself, of living in my own head, and having a more global view. I think is great advice. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, so I want to thank you for coming on. I know you have a new book. Do you have a new book coming out?
I'm always working on new. I have a new chapter in an education book from I think the University of North Carolina. They're editing something, so I just submitted it. But it's along those lines. I'm trying to write articles and books now that are more about big picture thinking. For example, how do we really find a way for community training, or cross community training, or coming together? There's a thing of like what divides us, what unites us, but I want to bring it more to life of what I'm actually doing and walking the walk in New York City and crossing communities, and how easy it is for us to forget that what we bicker about and what we fight about politically or personally or whatever it is, it's so nonsensical. And when communities get together, they can solve problems, and we need to focus on real issues and real problems and preparedness and all of that. So I'm trying to see what can bring communities together, what can bring people from different places together to work on things that are important. So I'm sure like some of your members are from Texas, and we're in New York City or in other places where with different political views, but the kids are the same kids.
And the stressors are the same.
Right.
Your stressors that happen don't care about your political affiliations or anything else. And how you manage them also doesn't matter what you really believe in. You're right. You have to take a philosophical view of a lot of this stuff, and I found that as I got older, that has helped me. Yeah. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. You're very qualified to talk about this, and you're still in the trenches of New York City school districts, and actually they're seeing what goes on day in and day out, and we appreciate it. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to try and hit them up to write an article for us in Contentment Magazine or Combat Stress Magazine, and we'll see if we can get some more insights and information. So Yair, toda rabah, Kaveri. Which I said was, I said thank you in Hebrew.
In Hebrew.
That was it. That was it for me. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. As always, we appreciate you joining us, and it's people like Yair and you guys listening to make this show possible. So your support helps make this and a lot of other things that go on in American Institute of Stress possible. And I want to remind everyone, just as stress is different for each of us, there is no one stress reduction or management strategy that is right for everyone. So that means you need to join us next time, and so we can explore more stress management strategies and insight. Remember to hit that like button, subscription button, go to stress.org, see our free course for teens, and gather some other information and tools and techniques to help you live a healthier, happier, and maybe even a longer life. And I hope the information that you heard from Dr. Maman and myself today will help you find contentment. Good day, everyone.